Hello, everyone, and welcome to one of our next weekly recordings with Zenzele and myself, where we focus on people, especially in the South African market, working in this field of digital and smart technologies in so many different ways, really doing amazing work. We have a very special guest today. So much talk about customer experience and customer centricity, and in my consulting experience, I've really seen big corporates get it really wrong. So I think we're going to learn a lot from the experience in the trenches from our guest today. Zenzele, I'll leave it with you then to please introduce Anne to the viewers.
Thank you so much, Johan. It's good to be back again. Today we have Anne Gray in our presence, and is very passionate about customer experience. Like Johan was saying, that we're going to talk about CX. And consults on CX-led digital transformation strategy and COO experience. That's what she is, the COO experience. And she's the managing director at Touch Solutionaires. And it's a great pleasure to have you in our conversation today. We are very excited to have you. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Johan and Zenzele. It's a real honor and a privilege to be with you guys today.
Awesome. Your bio says you are the COO experience. You're very passionate about customer experience. Maybe as an introduction, maybe you can tell us more about yourself and. Of course, the work you do within the CX digital transformation space and Touch Solutionaires as well. Yeah.
Thanks so much. Yeah, so I actually started my career off as a science teacher, a high school science teacher, and after about 7 years of doing that, I sort of realized that I needed to gain different experience. And so I entered the world of the private sector, if you like. I wouldn't say corporate, although I've worked with many corporates. And I started working for a company called Torch Telecoms Expense Management. And we basically looked after telecoms estates for large corporates. And so I was in the corporate environment, but not necessarily part of a corporate. And we initially started consulting on cost savings, and as Neotel came into the market and disrupted telecom, we saw what happened in terms of telecom really having to up the ante in terms of their products and services that they were offering. And then along came Vodacom with fixed line products and services, and MTN with fixed line products and services. And now the marketplace is a very different place to where it was when I started in telecoms in 2008. And we looked at our business, my business partner and I looked at our business in 2018, and we said, sure, this telecoms thing is, it's in sunset phase and we better do something. And so we looked around to see what was sort of starting to take off, and we saw that digital transformation and the fourth industrial revolution was starting to really impact the landscape, the South African landscape. And so we launched two sort of initiatives. The one was an RPA as a service business, and the other one was the digital transformation consulting. I had had some experience with working with customers in terms of change management, when we changed our telephones and systems, and what needs to happen in terms of making sure the users adopt correctly. But I'd also had experience because as part of our telecoms business, I had set up the services, the managed services product. And so we had lurched from, as you do when you set up a managed services team, you lurched from one major disaster to another major disaster. And I was very quick to say, we need some processes and we need some systems, and we cannot drive all of this off Excel. And we have to make sure that our customers have a good experience. And so that's really where my journey with customer experience started, was trying to make sure that my own customers in my services business were having a good experience. And that's where it started formally. But looking back throughout my life, I've actually always had a customer experience sort of stream, if you like. So straight out of school, I worked in retail over Christmas holidays. And if there's anywhere where you need to get customer experience right, it's in retail over the Christmas holidays. And when I'd finished studying my honors degree in Port Elizabeth, I came back to Johannesburg and I started waitressing. And, within a couple of months of waitressing, I was promoted to the front of house manager, because they recognized that I was able to sort of see those little details that matter to customers when they walk in. So looking back on my career, I can actually see that customer experience has actually always been important to me. But because I was a sort of a science teacher, I never really acknowledged it. And I think to a large part, it hasn't really been acknowledged in industry for a long time. And it's starting to come to the forefront now, as there are so many products and services that are very, very similar out there, and are really only differentiated by the service that they give the customer in some cases. So at the middle of 2019, one of our customers from the telecoms business moved into a new industry, and she sat down and we're having a cup of coffee, and she explained a problem that she was having. And he said, but we could probably work that answer out. She was basically saying, how do you know how to digitally transform? How do you know what to digitally transform? And we had a chat about it. We said, well, what's important to the customer? Because either you shouldn't transform that, or you should transform that, one or the other. And so she then asked a great question, and I went away and formulated a methodology to find out what in her business was full of friction for the customer. And based on that, what could we identify in terms of leveraging emerging technologies to make it easier for the customer? And that's where it all started in 2019. And we haven't looked back. So we sort of growing our consultancy now. We've put the RPA as a service to the side and are really focusing on the digital transformation, but really led by the customer and led by what makes it easier for the customer to work with you as an organization, but also what makes it easier for your people to work with your customers. And so that's really the focus and where we're going now.
I've got 55 comments and questions. You know what? I love the fact how you have pivoted your career, how you've grown. I've worked for some of the big consulting firms, and a lot of my colleagues went out of university into the firm, and their whole career experience has been that particular firm, and that's all they know. But one of my favorite quotes is that experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. And life experience, is so valuable. Some of the most incredible people I know working in the technology space did not start off there necessarily, but their life experience, whether it is as a parent or as a customer or as a colleague, builds on those things that's adding value to clients. So it's wonderful and so encouraging to hear about your journey. Something that stood out for me in the panel discussion we had recently, and also looking at your profile, is a very people-centered approach, customer-centered in particular. The whole CX, customer experience topic, is such a I sometimes listen to webinars and look at videos, and it's such nonsense. It's such academic, theoretical nonsense. And in my world, where I work a lot with RPA and smart automation, I often tell my customers, it should always be a people first initiative and not technology first. The importance of the well-being of our staff, and also the importance of the value of our customers. So I love that about what you do. I assume, and this leads to my question, that when you engage with customers, perhaps even for the first time a new customer, that they have a very, what I call a propeller head technical approach to some of these things, and that you sometimes have to bring them back and say, let's talk about people and why they matter. So what are some of the almost misconceptions you find when you deal with new customers about the topic that you are focusing on?
Well, I think customer experience is still not really getting the emphasis that it needs to get. And so the first problem I encounter is convincing the CFO that he needs to spend money on customer experience-led digital transformation rather than efficiency-led transformation, because you've got those sort of 4 types of digital transformation, and especially with regards to sustainability strategies, everybody wants to look at how can they cut costs, how can they do more with less, let's bring in the robots and see how many people we can replace. And, even when we were playing in the RPA as a service space and trying to see if we could make a product work there, there had to be a business case. There had to be a business case to show that the thing that you were about to automate, or the process that you were about to automate, was not actually going to cost as much as the person that was doing that job currently, or the team that was doing that job currently. And many, many, many times that business case actually failed because it was more expensive to use a robot than a person. Or the process that we looked at automating, or that we wanted to automate, had so many inflection points that you actually couldn't code, or the machine couldn't learn all of that. And so finding the perfect use case for automation or AI is actually a lot harder than people think it is. They think, there's a process and we can automate the whole process and then life will be amazing. And it really doesn't go like that. So we find that helping customers to understand which parts could be automated, but what values it actually going to bring to the business. If you have a business that's very requires huge attention to detail, it requires high accuracy, that's a good process to automate, because you do remove the error from the potential error from the system. But if you have a process where there are the decision tree just explodes, that's a terrible process to automate. And so explaining to the techie, listen, let's talk about the use case. Let's understand what are you actually trying to achieve out of this automation, or this digital transformation, or this bot, or this thing that you want to put in? What's your end state that you want to be in? And then we can look and see whether or not that technology is actually going to achieve that. Oftentimes when we put the price tag on the table in terms of, well, if you add all this new technology into your system, this is what it's going to cost you, we're actually able to sometimes use what they already have. You've already got Adobe licenses. Let's use that OCR rather than putting in a brand new one. You've already got a document workflow. Great, we can use that rather than putting in RPA. So I think sometimes people are excited about the new toys until they see the price tag, and then they want to know and then the FD gets excited. It's like, I can work with what I have. Great.
Love it.
Awesome. Thank you, Anne, for that. You're very passionate about customer experience. I think it's I don't know. It's not really. It's a no-brainer to say that we need to have customer experience embedded in all the technologies that we implement. AI in particular. But we have seen that even AI is being talked about. There's almost ubiquitous information about AI and its promises, but you find that the adoption of these technologies has been slow. And maybe this will actually lead me to the question which I think you would love to answer. You recently did a research towards your MBA, where you were talking about digital transformation, the success measurement model, for digital transformation, and maybe if you can maybe expound more in terms of your findings there, because I'm thinking maybe people they don't know how to measure the impact of this of AI, or their measurement or their approach to AI. They found it not effective. Maybe if you can help us there to say, how do we measure success with digital transformation? What should we look out for, and what should be the outcome? Because some of us will be thinking, well, we implement AI tomorrow, or we expect a huge bottom line by the end of the year, or return on equity, or our share price would immediately improve because we have implemented AI and all these technologies. Maybe if you can, give us insights there into how do we measure digital transformation?
So I propose that for different types of transformation, there would be different metrics. And so for customer oriented digital transformation, I propose that the customer metrics would be the most important. Those were typically your old marketing metrics. And I propose that for your business process efficiency digital transformation, then your typical financial metrics would be the most important metrics that we used, as well as obviously throughput in terms of manufacturing as well. And then for organizational digital transformation, I propose that you would also be looking at financial performance, but stakeholder satisfaction metrics there would be very important. And then the last one, new business model, I propose that again, financial metrics would be the most important, but also innovation metrics, because now you're trying to innovate a new business model. So that was sort of what I started out with. But what I discovered was, and I mean, I went through a process of interviewing CIOs, CEOs, chief procurement officers. So I sort of try to get a good mix throughout the C-suite, so that I wasn't just getting it from a CFO or a CEO's perspective. And I also looked across industries, so I wasn't industry specific, although there were quite a lot of financial service providers in my sample. And what I discovered was that generally financial performance metrics are the most important right up front. And so as soon as you want to measure the success of something, it really is about the return on capital invested, or about the sort of the revenue earned off of that new product or new service at the end of the day. And so that was really the primary metric. The primary metric that people are using to measure success in digital transformation is financial performance metrics. However, those were generally what was stated up front, like when the project started, and in fact, for all of the projects. But as the project progresses, they suddenly realize that they can't take those measurements during implementation because they haven't started to see the benefits. And so what are we going to measure as a secondary metric as this project progresses? And so then that's when we started to see innovation metrics, like, is this developing new skills within our workforce? Are we able to develop new core competencies for our business? And are we starting to see that infiltrate into other areas of the organization and other methods of deploying? So that was very interesting. The other metric that I saw emerging strongly was the information systems metrics. Those are things like, how is the adoption? What is the user uptake like? I mean, it's your old school information systems metrics are still being used during those projects. So you can still really rely on those. And then pretty much only for the customer-oriented digital transformations did we see the customer and marketing metrics come through strongly. And so that was sort of what I discovered, and I was shocked. I was actually quite frankly shocked, because I really thought the customer was going to feature more. And then the other thing that sort of also emerged was that the culture of the organization and the structure of the organization needed to then support the metrics that were being measured. And so because there was a sort of a shift in the way that things were being done and the way that things were being delivered, there was an impact on both culture and structure within organizations to be able to support that transformation that was happening, almost regardless of which one, although less so when it came to the business process optimizations. And obviously that one, those are your shorter. I think those are your shorter term projects, right? But if you're looking at a whole new product line or a whole new organizational design, that's a long-term project, and then you're going to look at, and then sort of all of this is undergirded by whatever the organization strategy was. So strategy drives the digital transformation. Financial performance gets it off the ground, but then to keep it in the air, you really have to have that culture and structure of the organization that then underpins this new way of working. And so, that was pretty much my findings in a nutshell. Yeah.
Again, 55 comments and questions on that. Again, the experience and the wisdom you're sharing is incredible. You can't learn these things in books. You have to experience it. I can't remember who came up with the quote that culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's quite a famous quote. Yes. Definitely, I think the company culture as part of a digital transformation is such a fascinating topic. And it was incredible to have you here. It was such wisdom. I can't wait to look at this video again and make notes. The solutioneers.co.za URL I'll add to the video as well, so that viewers can reach out to you and your firm. But it was an incredible pleasure. And it was just sitting back, listening to experience and wisdom and not just techie talk. It's such a wonderful kind of a breath of fresh air, if you would. So thank you for joining us. And it was really incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
Good stuff.
Thank you so much.